There is a check sitting uncashed in your landlord's pocket right now. It has your name on it. In most states, the law says they had a deadline to send it back to you. And if that deadline passed without a written, itemized explanation of every dollar they kept, they may have already forfeited the legal right to keep any of it. That is not a negotiating position. That is how the statute reads. There are $45 billion sitting in security deposit accounts across this country right now. Some of it is being held legitimately. A significant portion is not. And the renters it belongs to, people who moved out, cleaned the unit, left a forwarding address, most of them never sent the one letter that changes the legal landscape entirely. A certified demand letter. $0 to write, a few dollars to send. And when a landlord receives it, they are on a legal clock the legislature specifically designed to pressure them to respond or to pay. Before I get into the specifics, I want to be clear about something. My name is Paul Mercer. I practiced consumer protection law for 30 years, always on the people's side of the table. What I'm sharing in this video is general legal information based on that experience. It is not legal advice for your specific situation. Laws vary by state, and this topic is almost entirely governed by state law, which means the specific deadlines, penalty multipliers, and documentation requirements depend entirely on which state you rented in. If your situation is complex, if there is significant money at stake, or if you have been served with court papers, please consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. That said, the principles I am about to walk you through apply broadly, and I will tell you exactly where to check your state's version. Now, let me tell you what is actually happening with your security deposit from the other side of the table. The bill they sent you at move-out. This is where the confusion is manufactured. When a landlord sends you a bill for damages or returns your deposit short by $400 with a vague list attached, they are counting on something. They are counting on you believing that disputing it is complicated, that the law is on their side, and that the cost of fighting back is higher than just eating the loss. Here is what the surveys show. 1 in 4 renters loses part or all of their security deposit when they move out. And of those renters, 36% say their landlord gave them no explanation at all. Not a line item list, not a letter, just silence, and a check that was short. In most states, a written, itemized statement of every deduction is not optional. It is legally required. The landlord who sends nothing has already violated the statute, and in many states that violation alone can cost them the right to keep any of it. 41% of renters report a move-out dispute over costs with their landlord. This is the #1 reason people end up in small claims court, and most of them do not know they may be entitled to more than just their deposit back. In states like Texas and Massachusetts, we are talking about 2 or 3 times the deposit plus attorney's fees if the landlord acted in bad faith or failed to follow the procedural requirements the law mandates. The Federal Trade Commission took action in September 2024 against the largest landlord of single-family homes in this country. They found a documented pattern of deposits withheld for normal wear and tear, pre-existing damage, and renovations the company was undertaking regardless of tenant damage. The settlement was $48 million, $47 million of which had been returned to renters by early 2026. The company's practices were built on one assumption, that you would not push back. For most tenants, they were right. Let me be direct before we go further. This approach, the demand letter, the small claims filing, the penalty multiplier, works for the situation where your landlord kept money they were not legally entitled to keep. If you left the apartment with significant actual damage, large holes in walls, stains that were not there when you moved in, broken fixtures that you broke, the law gives the landlord the right to deduct for those. What I am walking you through today is the remedy for the most common situation, a landlord who kept part or all of a deposit for reasons that do not survive legal scrutiny. Normal wear and tear, missing documentation, deadlines they blew past. Now, I want to explain the legal framework because if I just hand you a letter without explaining why it works, you might leave out the elements that give it actual force. There is no single federal statute governing residential security deposits. This is entirely state law. The foundation most states built on is the Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, the URLTA, created in 1972. Before that, landlords could hold your deposit indefinitely, mix it with personal funds, return none of it, and if you wanted to fight it, you hired a lawyer and went to regular civil court, which cost more than the deposit. Every state today has some version of the same core framework: a return deadline, a requirement for a written itemized statement, and in most states, a penalty for violation. In most states, the return deadline is 30 days from the date the tenant vacates. In New York, it is 14 days. In Alabama, Arkansas, and West Virginia, the deadline runs to 60 days. Find out your state's deadline and calculate whether it has passed. Here is what most renters miss. In virtually every state, the landlord must provide a written, itemized statement of every deduction, a line-by-line accounting of every dollar kept and why. In California, repairs exceeding $125 require receipts. In Colorado, as of January 1, 2026, the tenant can request photos, invoices, and contractor records, and the landlord must produce them within 14 days. If the landlord fails to provide the itemized statement within the deadline, in many states that failure alone forfeits their right to withhold anything. And in Texas, under Texas Property Code Section 92.109, that failure also eliminates the landlord's right to sue you for any property damage at all. The landlord who skips the paperwork may have eliminated their own legal standing entirely. Now, I want to explain normal wear and tear because this is where most disputes live. The law in virtually every state prohibits landlords from deducting for normal wear and tear, the unavoidable aging that results from ordinary living. HUD defines it as faded paint, worn carpets, small nail holes, and minor scuffs. Colorado expanded the definition in 2026 to include minor damage and everyday uncleanliness. Paint scuffs from moving furniture is normal wear. Crayon drawings on the walls is damage. Carpet compressed from foot traffic is normal wear. Carpet soaked with pet urine is damage. Small nail holes from hanging pictures are normal wear. Large holes from improperly anchored shelving lean toward damage, depending on size and context. I had a client in my last years of practice, a teacher's aide, who had rented a 2-bedroom apartment for 6 years. When she moved out, her landlord kept $600 of her deposit for repainting and carpet cleaning. She had lived there 6 years. Paint fades, carpets compress. That is not damage. When she came to me, she had already accepted the loss. I told her, write the letter. She sent it, certified mail, on a Friday. Within 3 weeks, her landlord returned the $600 and offered a written apology. She never filed in court. The landlord knew the itemized statement they had sent did not satisfy the statute, and they knew that if she filed, the burden of proof was on them. Let me explain the burden of proof, because this is what most renters get exactly backwards. When a landlord withholds any portion of your security deposit, in most states the burden is on the landlord to prove the retention was reasonable, not on you, on them. In Texas, after 30 days, Texas Property Code Section 92.109 creates a legal presumption of bad faith against the landlord. They must affirmatively rebut it in court if they want to keep the money. That is the opposite of what most renters believe. Most renters think, I have to prove my landlord cheated me. The statute says, your landlord has to prove they didn't. There is one step that comes before the demand letter in a few specific states that you cannot skip. In Texas, your landlord's obligation to return the deposit does not fully trigger until you provide a written forwarding address. In Michigan, you have 4 days from move-out to notify the landlord of your forwarding address in writing. And if you miss that window, the landlord may be relieved of the duty to provide the itemized list. The rule: always give your forwarding address in writing on the day you move out. Send it certified mail. Keep the receipt. Now, here is the letter itself. Before I walk you through it, this is general information, not advice for your specific case. If anything is complicated, high dollar amounts, a landlord who has threatened to countersue, court papers you have been served with, please consult a licensed attorney before you send anything. The certified demand letter puts your landlord on formal notice of 3 things: what the law required them to do, that they failed to do it, and what the consequence is if they do not respond. It is precise, and precision is what makes it work. Here is what the letter must include. First, your name, your current address, and the address of the rental property you vacated. Second, the amount of the security deposit you paid, the date you paid it, and the date you vacated the property. Third, a reference to your state's specific return deadline statute. If you rented in Texas, Texas Property Code Section 92.103 requires the return of my security deposit within 30 days of surrendering possession. If you rented in California, California Civil Code Section 1950.5G requires return within 21 days. Your state has an equivalent statute. Look it up. Name it. Citation in a demand letter signals to the landlord that you know what the law actually says. Fourth, a statement of what was not returned. Either the full deposit was not returned, or it was returned short by a specific dollar amount, or you received no itemized statement, or both. Fifth, and this is the sentence most people leave out, and it is the sentence that carries the most legal weight. Reference the penalty multiplier your state provides. In Texas, pursuant to Texas Property Code Section 92.109, I am entitled to recover 3 times the amount wrongfully withheld, plus $100, plus reasonable attorney's fees if this matter proceeds to court. In Massachusetts, cite Massachusetts GL Chapter 186, Section 15B. In California, California Civil Code Section 1950.5 L. Your state's version belongs in this letter. Why does this sentence matter? Because it tells the landlord you know what is at stake for them. A landlord who gets a letter citing the penalty multiplier is not looking at a request for a refund. They are looking at potential court exposure of 2 or 3 times what they kept, plus fees, plus time in a courtroom. Sixth, a specific 14-day deadline for the landlord to respond. Seventh, a statement that if you do not receive a response by that date, you will file a claim in small claims court without further notice. Then your name. No signature. Keep a copy of everything. Send the letter via certified mail with return receipt requested. That green card is your proof of delivery, admissible in court. Do not send this letter by email alone. Certified mail is the standard courts recognize in most states. In most cases, the landlord responds within 14 days. They return the deposit in full, or they respond with documentation they should have sent the first time. If the documentation still fails to justify the deductions, you file in small claims court. Filing costs between $30 and $100. You do not need a lawyer. The hearing is typically scheduled 30 to 70 days after you file. At the hearing, the burden of proof is on the landlord to justify every deduction, line by line, with documentation. Your job is to show up with a copy of the lease, your certified mail receipt, and your photos. The landlord's job is harder. What if the landlord does not respond at all? Many individual landlords do not show up for the small claims hearing. When a properly served defendant fails to appear, the court typically enters a default judgment in the plaintiff's favor for the amount claimed, including any statutory multiplier you cited in your filing. The tenant who files and shows up often wins by default. Now, 5 specific states, each with something most renters there have never heard. Texas. Texas Property Code Section 92.109, 3 times the wrongfully withheld amount plus $100 plus attorney's fees. Bad faith is presumed after 30 days. The landlord must rebut it. And failure to provide the itemized statement eliminates the landlord's right to keep the deposit and eliminates their right to sue you for damage. That last part surprises almost everyone. Massachusetts. Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 186, Section 15B. 3 times the deposit, mandatory, not discretionary, for specific procedural violations. Here is the sharpest counterintuitive fact in landlord-tenant law that I know. A landlord who fails to put your security deposit in a separate interest-bearing bank account and fails to disclose which bank and account number within 30 days of receiving it owes you 3 times the deposit plus attorney's fees. Even if the carpet really did need replacing, even if the wall really did have a hole in it, the penalty for the procedural violation is mandatory, regardless of the merit of their damage deductions. If you rented in Massachusetts, look up whether your landlord complied with the separate account and disclosure requirements. That information alone may change the value of your claim significantly. California. California Civil Code Section 1950.5, 2 times the deposit as a bad faith penalty, in addition to return of the actual amount. 2 recent California laws you likely have not heard about. California AB 12, effective July 1, 2024, capped security deposits at 1 month's rent for most California landlords. If you signed a lease in California after that date and your landlord collected more than 1 month's rent as a deposit, that excess may be recoverable. And California AB 2801, effective April 1, 2025, now requires California landlords to photograph the rental unit before they begin any cleaning or repairs. That photograph must exist or the landlord has no baseline to support any cleaning charge. Colorado. Colorado House Bill 25-1249, signed June 3, 2025, effective January 1, 2026. Colorado expanded the definition of normal wear and tear. They capped deposits at 1 month's rent. They added treble damages for bad faith withholding, and they voided any lease clause that assigns cleaning or repair charges to the tenant for normal wear and tear. If your Colorado lease says you are responsible for a professional cleaning fee regardless of condition, that clause is now unenforceable. It does not matter that you signed it. New York. New York General Obligations Law, Section 7-108, as amended by the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019. Deposits capped at 1 month's rent statewide, applying to both rent-regulated and market-rate apartments. The return deadline is 14 days, the most aggressive in the country. If that deadline passed without a written itemized statement, the question of what you are owed under Section 7-108 is worth examining. If you are in Alabama, Arkansas, or West Virginia, your state's security deposit protections are more limited. The return deadline runs to 60 days. The penalty multiplier provisions are less robust. You still have rights and can sue in small claims court for breach of the return requirement, but the statutory multipliers that make this a powerful financial remedy are not the same. Even in states with weaker protections, the demand letter is still worth sending because many landlords respond to a letter that cites specific law even when the penalty exposure is lower. I want to talk about when this does not work because Paul Mercer does not leave town without telling you the full picture. This approach works when your landlord improperly kept money for wear and tear, for a failed itemization, for missing a deadline. It does not work if the court finds you caused actual damage beyond normal use. Courts apply a facts and circumstances standard. The photographs tell the story. If you have photos showing move-in condition that matches move-out condition, the burden on the landlord is harder. If there is genuine damage you caused, a court will see it, and a demand letter does not change that underlying reality. Here is when this video is not enough. If you have been served with a court summons for this dispute, if the landlord has already filed a claim against you, or if there is a judgment already entered, the rules change and you need a licensed attorney, not a letter and a YouTube video. The good news: tenants' rights attorneys and consumer protection attorneys often handle these cases on contingency. If the amount in dispute exceeds your state's small claims limit, $7,500 in Colorado, $12,500 in California, $20,000 in Texas, you are in regular civil court, and representation matters. Everything I have walked you through today is for residential leases, apartments, houses, condos that you rent to live in. Commercial leases are governed by contract law with virtually no consumer protection overlay. If you are dealing with a commercial lease, you need an attorney. I had another client, a school administrator, who kept every piece of paper. He had received a $12,000 bill from a property management company after a 2-year tenancy. The bill used a contractor code that classified the repair as a structural renovation rather than normal maintenance, inflating the deductible amount far beyond what the law allows. We sent a demand letter citing the state statute, noting the specific line items that crossed into non-deductible territory, and requesting documentation tying the work to specific tenant damage. The company's legal department responded within 10 days. The bill went to zero. Because the documentation needed to support $12,000 in deductions did not exist in the form the statute requires, and a letter that proves you know that fact changes the calculation entirely. Let me do the math for you. Certified mail with return receipt, roughly $8. Small claims filing if you need it, $30 to $100. Total cost, under $110 in the worst case. In Texas, Massachusetts, and Colorado, a $1,200 deposit wrongfully withheld is potentially a $3,600 court award plus attorney's fees. In California, New York, and other states with the 2 times multiplier, it is potentially $2,400 plus fees. A consumer protection attorney charges $300 an hour minimum in most markets. 2 hours of work on a demand letter and filing is $600 before you know whether you have a case worth pursuing. The letter is $8 and your time. The most expensive thing you can do in a security deposit dispute is nothing. The system is priced on that assumption. Here is how you use what you have learned today. Step 1. Find your state's security deposit statute. Search your state plus security deposit return deadline or use the NOLO Tenant Rights Guide, which is free online and well-maintained. Identify the deadline and confirm whether it is passed. Step 2. Check whether you received a written, itemized statement within that deadline. Not a verbal conversation, not a text message in most states. A written, line-by-line accounting sent within the statutory window. If that statement did not arrive, arrived late, or is incomplete, you have the foundation for your letter. Step 3. If you rented in Massachusetts, check whether your landlord told you in writing within 30 days of your deposit the bank name, branch, and account number where it is held. If they did not, that procedural violation has its own consequence under Massachusetts GL Chapter 186, Section 15B. If you rented in California and vacated after April 1, 2025, confirm whether your landlord photographed the unit before cleaning or repairs. Step 4. Write the letter. Your name and address, the rental address, the deposit amount and payment date, your vacate date, the specific state statute governing return deadlines, a statement of what was not returned or not properly itemized, a citation to your state's penalty multiplier statute, a 14-day response deadline, a statement that failure to respond will result in a small claims filing, certified mail. Keep the receipt. Step 5. If the landlord does not respond within 14 days or responds with a position you believe is legally unsupportable, file in small claims court. The filing clerk at the courthouse will tell you what forms to complete and what the fee is. Bring your lease, your certified mail receipt, your photos, and a copy of your demand letter. You are the plaintiff. The landlord is the one who has to justify every deduction with documentation. Tell me in the comments what state you are in and whether you or someone in your family has dealt with a security deposit dispute. I read every comment. If there is a specific situation you are navigating, describe it. It may be the subject of the next video. The kind of person who sends this letter is not unusual. They are not a legal expert. They know one thing, that the law already put the leverage in their hands, and the letter is how you pick it up. Now you know it. Let me leave you with what I want you to take from this. The law requires a deadline. Most states, 30 days. New York, 14. If that deadline passed without a full written itemized statement, the landlord has already made a legal error. The remedy is a certified demand letter citing the specific statute, naming the penalty multiplier, giving a 14-day response window, sent with return receipt so the delivery is documented. The system is built on one assumption, that you will decide the fight is not worth it. The letter challenges that assumption at a cost of under $100 and an hour of your time. I have seen landlords return money they had kept for months the moment a properly drafted demand letter arrived. Not because the letter was magic, because the letter proved the tenant knew what the law said, and knowing is the whole thing. Send this to someone you know who just moved out or who is about to move out and does not know this letter exists. One message, 10 seconds. If there is even a chance they do not have to give that money up, that is worth 10 seconds. Next time I am going to walk you through the move-in checklist, the document you should have gotten on day 1, what to do if you did not get it, and how that record protects you at move-out in ways no demand letter can fix after the fact. The landlord counts on you not having it. We will talk about that. They're counting on you not knowing. Now you know. See you in the next one.